Welcome back, everybody. It's Alex, and today we are going over some critical Bitcoin data that just got released. This is going to give us a good idea if the bottom is in sight or if we still have a bit of a ways to go. So we're going to cover that data in relation to Bitcoin and then what it means for the broader market for crypto. So let's hop right in. So obviously today, Bitcoin's struggling a little bit more than yesterday. We're down about 2% over the last 24-hour period, and we may see that extend, a little bit more into this week. Now, going into some of the recent kind of data that we've been flagging here in the last 24 hours to 48 hours, one of the first things that kind of caught my eye here is that on Coinbase Pro, particularly today, we've seen a massive inflow into exchanges from supply that has not been moved in at least 6 months. So these are folks that have held for quite a bit of time. A lot of times when we see exchange inflows, it's from people who are holding a month or less, people who are kind of trading and flipping Bitcoin and kind of trading it within a range. But here you're actually seeing folks that have held for at least 6 months. A lot of these people could be even taking losses and selling at lows. But typically this is a bearish signal to have this much at one time come into in terms of inflows into an exchange. A lot of the times it's for selling purposes. So it's just something to watch, right? Especially with Coinbase Pro being one of the most popular and Coinbase overall being one of the most popular exchanges, having 3,500 Bitcoin come in the last 24 hours in terms of inflow and have each one of those Bitcoin, having been held for at least 6 months in these wallets, that means you have some people really considering, hey, I've been holding for a while. We haven't seen this bounce. Maybe I sell at a low. So that is definitely concerning. We're seeing a lot of info, and typically that tends to be somewhat of a bearish signal. Now, to kind of compound on that, for the first time, in months, we've seen kind of this crazy outflow of Bitcoin particularly, and Ethereum as well, but Bitcoin particularly amongst institutions. So this is kind of the flow by asset, and you're seeing, obviously we've seen this kind of decrease in both Ethereum investment and Bitcoin investment. But what's unique about the Bitcoin investment, if you've been watching some of these past videos, and we cover this pretty often, we've seen a lot of institutional buying, amongst or for Bitcoin amongst institutions, right? And especially in the last, few months. But now this has kind of counteracted a lot of that institutional investing that we've seen recently. This is, month to date, you're talking about a decrease in $400 million worth of Bitcoin investment, and 450 million just this week have been outflowed from institutions for Bitcoin. So they're selling 450 million Bitcoin this week, bringing them to a net 407 million Bitcoin sold, and this is $1 million sold of Bitcoin. So we're seeing a serious decline and serious selling pressure from institutions. So it's not only retail, it's not only looking at the on-chain analytics for retail, but it's also saying, look at these institutions kind of finally slowing down that buying that we had seen in previous weeks, where they're buying 20 million, 30 million, even $100 million worth of Bitcoin week to week. And now they're selling $450 million in 1 week as, a group of institutions, right? And so I think this is something we definitely need to keep our eyes on, and definitely a red flag just in terms of what we've been seeing, and as it's kind of bucking the trend of institutional inflows that we've been seeing, having this kind of outflow basically take away those weeks of inflows that we've seen over the last few months. So definitely something to keep our eye on there. And as we look at this kind of more granularly, if we take a look at inflows to exchanges for BTC, you're going to notice just over the last day, we've seen almost 3x in the amount of Bitcoin coming into exchanges, and almost a 3x, 2.5x of people holding BTC on exchanges. Now, a lot of times when we cover this, especially over the last couple months, we've actually seen this number go down. To see, this go back up means that more people are at least considering selling, right? A lot of times if you're going to hold Bitcoin, you keep that on a ledger, you buy it on exchange, send it to a ledger, and just hold it there, right? And now a lot of folks are saying, hey, I want the option. I don't know if the bottom's in. I think maybe a lot of people are considering that we're going lower, and there's a lot of people who have selling on their mind right now. So we definitely want to keep watching that. This really is almost a trend reversal as to what we've been seeing the last few months. And that's why it's so critical that we pay attention to this, especially in the coming weeks, because our natural trend has been additional outflow, additional institutional buying, but now we're almost seeing all of that being reversed with this kind of crazy trend of inflows, particularly in the selling from institutions. Now, what does this mean for the kind of future of Bitcoin, right? And, where we're going to be headed here just in the next, few weeks or months. And I wanted to bring up this market value to realized value chart. We talk about this once in a while on this channel. I think it's very, very helpful in terms of trying to identify when Bitcoin is undervalued and when it's a good buy. So a couple things I want to note here. A lot of the times when we've been in a bear market previously, we've seen at least a 21% dip below the realized price. Now, what I mean by realized price is the blue line is market cap and the orange line is realized cap. So realized market cap. So it's taking the value of Bitcoin held in wallets from the last time it was moved. So it's taking that basically realized price of Bitcoin and putting that against the market cap. Now, whenever the market cap is below the realized price, typically it's a good time to buy Bitcoin. But we've usually seen that fall at least 20% below the realized price. And right now we're only at about 15, 16%. So a lot of the times we see that hit at least 20% below that realized value before we see a bounce. And you're also going to notice in these previous bear markets, we have been sinking into this green area here, which kind of helps us understand how undervalued Bitcoin is based on that market cap versus realized cap calculation. A lot of times you see that we play in this green area. This is typically when it's a good time to buy historically, within a 2-week to 2-month time frame, right? And we've seen this historically play out where we're spending a lot of time in that green area on the Z-score, whereas now we've kind of just dipped in below and we've kind of just initially, started to find our place down there. We bounced a little bit, but as you can see just here in kind of this last true bear back in, 2018, we were down here in this green area for, a couple months, right? 3 months. So, to say that we've already had a bottom, I think is a little bit jumping the gun. I think we could see, some steeper decline here based on what we're seeing on the Z-score, based on what we're seeing on, the inflows into exchanges as well. We're seeing institutions pull back and actually sell Bitcoin. So it's really, really interesting to see that. Now, the other thing, which a lot of you guys are probably familiar with, is typically when we get one of these bear markets, a lot of times we'll see Bitcoin fall. In the past, it's been, 84%, 87%, right in between 90 and 80%, right? And right now, if we're going to our lowest wick, and you guys probably remember, back when we were kind of mid 17K range, we were at, 75-ish% down from our all-time high of 69K. So certainly would be on par in terms of how we expect the drawback to be a little bit less over time, each bear market. But at the same time, we haven't reached that kind of 80%, low watermark that we typically expect in a bear market. And that's going to be down here, right around this kind of between 12.5 and 13K mark. And what's interesting about this particular point is that it's actually a previous resistance back here that we experienced in 2020. So it wouldn't be out of character for Bitcoin to fall that 80% from the all-time high, drop down to, 13, 14K, and then have this previous resistance back here actually turn into somewhat of a support where we get a bounce right around that 80% mark. And again, a lot of people, not only is this baked into the chart, but a lot of people are watching for this 80% decline. And a lot of people are looking for, more of a bottom here in Bitcoin. And so maybe this previous resistance turns into a support, and then maybe that's when we start kind of leveling off and then working our way back up, right? And obviously that's just kind of speculation, but at the same time, it would be foolish to say we've absolutely 100% bounced, especially with the institutional selling. We're now seeing this crazy turnaround just in the last week or so. And we're also seeing that, even though we're undervalued in the long term, we still have a way to go in terms of dropping below our realized market cap for our official market cap, right? And, we haven't seen Bitcoin do that 80% decline. We've only seen it really do 74, 75, and that was on a wick, right? So if we're going to say, where have we actually stabilized? It's really closer to 70%. So a lot of the times, when you still have another 10% to go, on that bear market turn down, it hasn't been that wide of a gap before, right? It's always been between 95 and 84% or so, and so 87 and 84% being the last two bear markets respectively. That's only a 3% difference, right? So a lot of the times, you're going to expect at least a 75 to 85% decline here, and that's why I think, if I were to speculate, I'd say we probably have another leg down, especially with what we're seeing with inflows, especially in the last week and 24 hours even. But I wanted to get this update up to you guys just so that you're aware. We've kind of seen a lot of hype around institutions getting into Bitcoin, but we've had this kind of almost U-turn of a reversal just in the last week or so. And we're seeing a lot of institutions actually restructure themselves, sell some Bitcoin, and maybe position themselves to get in at a lower point. Who knows? Maybe they know something's coming. Maybe they know something we don't. But I want you guys to be aware that that is happening, because we are seeing a lot of also positive news around institutions, and that's more so from the macro perspective, right? But right now, micro, these last few weeks, institutions have actually been selling. So I wanted to get that out. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know what else you guys want me to cover. And thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.